And after a busy weekend here on the network, 7 games played in total, joined by Cody Wall for this week's edition of Off the Wall with Cody. Cody Wall, ASTV Productions, color commentator, here to break down these games here on his segment here that happens every Tuesday, of course, doing this segment pre-recorded on Monday night as usual. And Cody, sure you've had a busy day. How you doing? How you feeling after your busy day at work?
Yeah, it was good. Good to get back to the grind after a busy weekend. Back to the busy week with after a busy weekend. So it was nice.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And a busy weekend it was with a lot of great games, a lot of close games that we got to cover this weekend, Cody. Of course, starting off with the CSSHL U17 Male Prep Showcase that was hosted by the Buffaloes in Mound, Manitoba at Blackjack Stewart Arena. 4 teams were in action. The Buffaloes, the Notre Dame Hounds, the Prairie Hockey Academy, and the International Hockey Academy were all in action. Starting off with the team that we cover here on the network, the team that pays the bills, we'll put it that way. A successful weekend for the Pilot Mound Hockey Academy Buffaloes, going 2-1 on their weekend, starting off Friday with a 3-1 loss to Notre Dame, winning in a thrilling, shocking upset, 4-3 shootout win over Prairie Hockey Academy on Saturday morning, and of course finishing off the weekend on Sunday morning with a 2-0 win over International Hockey Academy. You only got to watch 2 games in person from the Buffaloes this weekend, but I know you said you had the game on with Notre Dame that they played against them on Friday at work. You didn't have the sound on, but looking at that game to start off the weekend for Pilot Mound, just the way they look, your takeaways from what you saw in parts in that game from them on Friday against Notre Dame.
Yeah, definitely. From parts of what I was able to see of that game on Friday, Pilot Mound definitely looked good in that game as well as they did all weekend. It was just I didn't quite catch that first goal by Notre Dame, but from what I had heard, it was kind of, it wasn't one that you could blame the goaltender on, and the guys battled back and were able to keep it close with only going to 3-1.
Yeah, and Miles Gordon got the start in that game against Notre Dame, and it was a bit of a weaker goal let in by Miles Gordon, but he only let in 1 goal after that. Of course, the last goal for Notre Dame in that game was a empty netter, but overall, just looking at the goaltending from the Buffaloes, we saw not only Miles Gordon play, but Cameron Perrier getting the win over Prairie Hockey Academy on Saturday morning, and Cian Hodgins having a great shutout performance against IHA on Sunday morning. Just looking at it, summing up Pilot Mound's goaltending performance in total this past weekend.
Yeah, it really was a coming out party for Pilot Mound goaltending crew because, like you said, all 3 of the U17 goaltenders were able to play and have good outcomes. Granted, Cian Hodgins and Cameron Perrier got the win, but Miles Gordon still had a good game for himself as well, bringing it all around to all 3 goalies having, a good weekend.
Yeah, and Miles made some really fantastic saves in that Friday game, even though he ended up getting a loss in his record on the season. Definitely a strong performance from him, and something that the Buffaloes got to be confident in with him, going out and starting when they do put him out, as well as Cameron Perrier and Cian Hodgins. But looking at that game against Prairie Hockey Academy on Saturday, the Buffaloes down in this game for the majority of it until the 3rd period when they tied it. But what really, in my opinion, stood out from Pilot Mound in that game was just their strong forecheck, their relentlessness on that forecheck, especially as the game went along, especially in that 3rd period. How impressed were you from the overall performance from the Buffaloes in the offensive zone on the forecheck and everything they did on that Saturday morning game when they ended up getting the win against Prairie Hockey Academy?
Yeah, I know I kind of alluded to it a bit during the broadcast, how I thought Pilot Mound came out a little bit slower than I would have liked in that Saturday morning game, but they did pick up pace as the game progressed. And, as Captain Perrier made saves, they were able to, gain momentum off of that because there were definitely some timely saves by him. And as the game did progress, their forechecking just got better and better as the game progressed, and their puck possession. They were able to hold on and got a little bit more confident with the puck and able to make a little bit more plays out there as the game progressed.
And something that we've seen from the U15 side of things from the Buffaloes so far this year is just their resiliency. And Pilot Mound in that game against Prairie Hockey Academy for this U17 group showing a lot of resiliency to battle back in that game and to tie it up in that third period. How impressed were you in just this ability from this U17 male prep Buffaloes team to battle back in that game, to be resilient and stay the course, to end up fighting back and tying it up in that third period, to force it to overtime and ending up getting that win in the shootout?
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, it seems to be something that the Buffaloes really instill in their guys there, and guys and girls there, is resiliency. Never being out of the game, never being out of whatever situation you're in, and fighting and clawing back as best you can. And that's something that we saw from the U17 team on Saturday, was resiliency to keep going and keep answering back every time that Prairie scored a goal. Pilot Mound was able to keep it within 1 or 2 minutes after Prairie taking the lead.
And, continuing with another good performance on Sunday against the International Hockey Academy for the Buffaloes, getting a 2-0 win to end off their weekend after coming off such a high off of that win, beating a team, upsetting a team that is ranked second in the U17 prep division in the CSSHL and Prairie Hockey Academy. The Buffaloes end up taking care of business, 2-0 win over the International Hockey Academy on Sunday, continuing those good habits. How impressed were you with just that early morning game for Pilot Mound once again on Sunday to continue those good habits and ending up getting that win against IHA?
Yeah, I really liked Pilot Mound's effort. It did seem like they came out right from the get-go, from that initial puck drop, and seemed a lot more hungrier than they did at the beginning of that Saturday morning game. Just throughout the whole consistent effort, it looked like the Buffalo just were there for a full 60-minute effort rather than maybe starting off a little bit slow like they did Saturday.
Yeah, and of course, we've spoken about the goaltenders so far. Of course, Kean Hodgins having an unbelievable performance, making some really key saves late in that game, especially to keep it a 1-0 lead for the Buffaloes before they ended up getting an empty netter, courtesy of Carlos De Leon, who scored 2 goals in that Sunday game. But overall, besides the goaltenders, who really impressed you from this Buffalo squad throughout this weekend that you saw?
Yeah, other aside from goaltending, which was amazing this weekend, Laz Constant really just continues to show me how good of a player he is for this U17 Buffalo team. He managed to pick up, I believe, 5 points on the weekend, and just consistently showing how he is a catalyst for the U17 team, and somebody who's going to be they're going to depend on a nightly basis to generate offense and kind of generate offense off of that. Him hold his puck possession, with his ability to hold on to the puck and create defenders to come towards him, drawing people off of their assignments and really making mistakes for the defensive team.
Yeah, Last Constant showing game in, game out from when we've covered this U17 team that he is that offensive threat that is going to be a huge part of the Buffalo's success moving forward into the season, he's shown that he's been able to get it done in all facets of the game so far in the offensive zone for the Buffaloes this season. But looking at another team now, Cody, switching over to another team, Notre Dame, the only team that didn't drop a loss on the weekend. They only had to play 2 games, of course, with the Edge dropping out of the showcase due to players getting sick. They were unable to attend. Unfortunate that we weren't able to see them because that's a very exciting team to watch as we've covered them before. But Notre Dame coming out winning 2 close games, 3-1 over the Buffaloes on Friday, 2-1 over IHA on Saturday. You had a chance to watch them briefly, of course, on Friday against the Buffaloes from your office at work. But in that game against IHA on Saturday, good fight shown by them to, fight off a scare in terms of maybe getting upset by IHA pulling through in that game.
Yeah, it definitely was a tight game between those two teams on Saturday, between IHA and Notre Dame. But definitely Notre Dame showed that they were the reason why they were a bit higher in the standings is just because they have so much more offensive threats on their team. So many other guys who can kind of create offense by themselves and help their teammates along.
Yeah, and let's dive into that. The things that you were really impressed of in terms of the strengths that this team showed, dive into that a bit more. What you really liked out of the strengths that were shown by Notre Dame in that 2-1 game on Saturday.
Yeah, Notre Dame's team, a lot of their offense seemed like it was generated off the rush, off of a lot of foot speed. So guys driving up the boards and then just beating their opponents to the puck was one of the big components that helped them get the W this weekend on both occasions.
What were some things in that game that you felt that Notre Dame could have done a bit better? Of course, IHA was in that game until the very end, keeping it very close. Getting a goal scored by Caden Bigplume, which we'll talk about in just a bit out of his play this weekend. But the things that you feel like Notre Dame is going to have to clean up here moving forward in their season to continue having the success that they've had here early on in the CSSHL regular season in 2021-2022.
Yeah, they're definitely a team that's been trucking along in this CSSHL season. But it can never hurt to, experiment with, line combinations, when times are getting tough, trying to generate offense with different line mates, never being happy with just what's going on, always wanting more, staying, never taking for granted your opponents when matching up with them. But really not a whole lot of holes I saw in that team. They were really a fast team that didn't seem like they gave up a whole lot defensively either.
Yeah, and in Friday's game, especially against the Buffaloes, this team doing a really good job of getting in the shot lanes, blocking shots, and making it difficult at times for the Buffaloes to generate chances in their zone. Of course, the Buffaloes were able to generate their chances, getting a goal in that game, but a lot of that carried over just their strong defensive play, as well as their good transition game as that game went along on Saturday, as they struggled a bit early on that from the forecheck of IHA to break out of the zone. They were icing the puck early on, but as the game went along, Notre Dame really starting to clean that part up in their game. But, looking at it in terms of a player that really impressed you from Notre Dame this weekend from the game you saw against IHA and that game against the Buffaloes as well.
A player I really liked from Notre Dame was number 16, Keegan Gamble. He had managed to get a goal on that Saturday matchup between IHA, and he really looked good, engaging in the physicality, even though he was a smaller guy, going after some of the bigger bigger IHA players when they did have the puck, not really showing that he was going to back down from anybody. And that was definitely something I appreciated, along with he had great foot speed. It was another thing that was, one of his assets that I saw on Saturday.
Yeah, a fast, shifty player who was able to generate a bunch of offensive opportunities for Notre Dame, whether that being getting pucks on net or finding his teammates with his good passing ability, as well as, like you said, a player not afraid to get physical, especially with his size. Got to definitely, give him props for that. So we're going to take a quick commercial break here, Cody. We're going to be back with you on your segment here on Coffee with Graham, Off the Wall with Cody, to talk about Prairie Hockey Academy, their weekend, as well as the team that played the most games at the CSSHL Showcase in International Hockey Academy, who played in 4 games. We'll be right back here on Off the Wall with Cody Wall here on Coffee with Graham in just a moment. Stick with us.
Welcome to Pilot Mound Hockey Academy, your world-class academic and hockey training facility created to maximize each student's athletic and academic potential. Blackjack Stewart Arena, home of the Buffalo, is inside the 46,000 square foot complex, as well as a curling rink and other facilities. The students have a unique combination of successful, well-rounded education at Pilot Mound Collegiate Institute and the professional hockey training in an encouraging community. The years of experience of on-ice coaching propel our students to the next level, both mentally and physically, in a professional environment.
Welcome back to Off the Wall with Cody, here with Cody Wall on Coffee with Graham, of course. First part of this week's segment of Off the Wall with Cody, we talked about the Pilot Mound Hockey Academy Buffaloes, as well as the Notre Dame Hounds, how they did this weekend. Cody breaking down what he liked from those teams, as well as some other stuff. We're going to move into the 2 other teams that we saw here this weekend, Cody. Starting off firstly with the Prairie Hockey Academy. They got 2 wins over IHA on Friday night and Saturday night, and that Friday night game winning 9-1 to open up their weekend, and a 5-1 win on Saturday night, and of course a 4-3 shootout loss against the Buffaloes on Saturday morning. But overall, how impressed were you with just how this Prairie Hockey Academy team performed this weekend?
Yeah, I liked how the Prairie Hockey Academy looked. They were definitely a strong team, and it was part of what made watching Pilot Mound versus Prairie Hockey Academy so entertaining, was because how good both teams were playing. Both teams were, playing with a lot of heart, a lot of effort, and Prairie Hockey Academy showed really why they are where they are in the standings by their effort level.
Yeah, and a very quick team that we saw, a team that was relentless on the puck and heavy on the forecheck, and really that forecheck, their relentlessness on the puck, their ability to move it around in the offensive zone, especially on the power play, was something that really impressed me from what we saw this weekend, Cody. But in terms of it, just talking about their offensive game this weekend, of course, a 9-1 win, a 5-1 win, and even in that loss to Pilot Mound, being up in that game, putting up 3 goals in that game against them on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. They were a very offensive team, putting up close to 40 shots against the Buffalo. Really were taking shots from everywhere. It looked like a lot of their offense, I believe, did come from their back end, a lot of cycling to their defensemen. I know one of the guys we had mentioned for Prairie Hockey Academy was Connor Slagowski. He was definitely a player that was handling the puck well on the back end for Prairie.
Yeah, and speaking of their play in the defensive zone, even though Pilot Mound in that game against them, the Buffaloes in that win on Saturday started to break them down, really took control in that third period. For the most part in that game, Prairie Hockey Academy doing a very good job of transitioning smoothly out of their zone. How impressed were you with just what we saw from them throughout that game? in the defensive zone in terms of them, covering things up and transitioning against the Buffaloes on Saturday.
Yeah, they in their own end, they do play a very responsible game. Didn't look like they were being too terribly aggressive, but playing the man-to-man defense out there with some active sticks and able to kind of create some turnovers with their active sticks out there.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about the Buffaloes game against them for Prairie Hockey Academy going up against the Buffaloes. But what about those games against IHA? Really dominant on the scoreboard for them. What impressed you about those Friday night and Saturday night wins that they had against IHA?
Yeah, definitely in those games versus IHA, seems like maybe it was a bit of a case of the first game, maybe I didn't get a chance to see that first game between IHA and Prairie on Friday, but on Saturday they had probably caught IHA, or sorry, Prairie probably came into that game maybe a little bit with a little bit of hurt pride, losing to a team that was lesser than them in the standings. Granted, you're not going to go 100% on the season, but every time you lose to somebody lower in the standings, maybe you go into that next game with an extra little jump in your step.
Yeah, and interesting thing you brought up there is just losing to a team that is below them, way below them in terms of just the standings, in terms of record. Do you feel like that loss to the Buffaloes on Saturday morning was really maybe the wake-up call that Prairie Hockey Academy needed here early on in the season to say that, we know we have the skill, we know we have the talent to beat almost any team in this league, if not maybe every team in this league. It's just time to settle things down now and get back to our game and start playing to our strengths more out there.
Yeah, definitely. I do think that definitely has a part to play in it when you come off losing to a team lesser than you in the standings, kind of getting that extra, like I said, extra boost that next game, and trying to fire on all cylinders a little bit extra than you maybe normally would for any other game.
Talking about their special teams, really moved it around nicely against Pilot Mound in that game on Saturday, drawing Pilot Mound in, moving the puck around really nicely on the power play, some nice cross-ice passes, really taking advantage of it, exposing the Buffaloes penalty kill at times, of course, getting a goal on that power play as well for Prairie Hockey Academy in that game. But just how impressed were you from just the special teams we saw throughout the weekend from Prairie Hockey Academy this past weekend?
Yeah, when such a highly offensive team like Prairie Hockey Academy comes in, when you see that special team, you understand that special teams is going to be a part to play. So when you see a fast offense like Prairie come in, you get a little excited to watch what they're going to do on the power play, and they definitely just didn't disappoint. Their cycle game is definitely a strong point, able to kind of keep it on the half wall and have somebody kind of survey the offensive zone, looking for the right spot to pass. And on the Saturday morning game, they were able to, like you mentioned, capitalize on one of their opportunities.
Talking about one last thing here for Prairie Hockey Academy, like the other teams we've talked about so far, just a player that really stood out to you. You've already mentioned Slugoski, but would you say that he was the most impressive player that we saw from Prairie Hockey Academy, or is there another player you had in mind that really stood out to you this weekend?
Yeah, I would say I know we had mentioned him in the pregame show. Tide Pratt was definitely a player I thought was quite shifty. I had seen that for offensive zone faceoffs, they seemed to like his shot on that wing. So it was something I had noticed during that game, that they had kind of played around with him, used some of his skills to their advantage, putting him in certain spots that maybe he'd be able to generate a little extra offense. And he was definitely somebody I had liked for the Prairie Hockey Academy.
Moving over to International Hockey Academy now, the team that played the most games this weekend out of any team that played in the showcase. 4 games played, but they lost every single game. 9-1 on Friday night, 2-1 against Notre Dame on Saturday morning, 5-1 loss against Prairie Hockey Academy on Saturday night, and ending off their weekend with a 2-0 loss against the Buffaloes. But overall, looking at IHA, not coming away with a win this weekend, but overall, how would you assess the way that, we saw this team go out and play, how this team looked this weekend from what we saw?
Yeah, obviously, with not coming out of this showcase with a win, you got to take some other kind of victories, moral victories, and putting up a solid effort against some teams that maybe were ahead of you in the standings, like Notre Dame, having such a close game against a team that you can see closer to the top of the standings, maybe gives you a little bit of more reassurance of that you're a little bit closer to having a better product on the ice rather than being at the bottom of the league. You feel a little bit closer in some of those games with where the end result is going to be at the end of the year.
Talking about something that impressed you from IHA, something that impressed me was just how this team came out at the start of each period to start off strong and kind of give some teams a scare, getting some offensive zone time early on. Of course, they can replicate that for a full 20 minutes throughout the periods, but overall, just what you liked out of their start in their periods and what you liked from in terms of their strengths this weekend.
Yeah, they definitely were a physical team led by some of their top end talent, like as you mentioned, Caden, Big Plume. Another player I liked was Tayson Swampy. He was another guy who threw the body around. I had seen Sam Josinet on the defense. He was definitely a physical defender. A big guy on the back end who was throwing the body and had a good active stick. I didn't think I saw a whole lot of defensive breakdowns coming when he was on the ice. He definitely, in my opinion, I thought was one of the better defenders for IHA this weekend.
Now, talking about, of course, the negatives now, because negatives with losing 4 games, of course, not getting the results they wanted and to potentially getting a win this past weekend, things that you feel like IHA kind of lacked out there in terms of them, not being the best at this past weekend.
Yeah, something I noticed is maybe some of their passes weren't quite on target. That's definitely something when you're playing teams, you're going to want to make sure your passes are clean and crisp. And I know I believe I had mentioned it during our broadcast that one of my coaches told me when I was younger that, you'll never skate as fast as the puck. So, if you get a good passing game, you can be just as good as a fast team. You could have a team full of Connor McDavids that are just wheeling up the ice, but if you can get your passing game good, that's definitely an asset, and you'll see a lot of good results coming from that.
Yeah, and that's something I noticed too, Cody, was just them kind of panicking with the puck, not really being settled down with the puck at times, really something that they want to work on, I feel like, is being a bit more patient with the puck and not throwing it away as much as they were. And also, being a bit more patient in the offensive zone too. There was that one time where they had a potential 2-on-1. I felt like from what I saw, the player that was wide open, I forget which 2 players were on the chance there on the 2-on-1, but instead of shooting it, should have maybe had a bit more patience with the puck and looked the other way to make a pass. But that's just my opinion there. Looking at their goaltending this weekend, some strong goaltending showed in both that Notre Dame game and that game against the Buffaloes. Of course, getting losses in that game for the goaltenders that played. But what impressed you about the goaltending side of things from IHA this past weekend?
Yeah, it definitely looked like those both guys didn't really give up on either the games or any of the games, really. They always looked like they were still putting forth a good effort. I know for the game on Sunday, we had seen Mason Cottrell, I believe, in net for that game, and had a strong game in that game. Kept IHA in it to the end. He only let in one goal on the game, and he was definitely a strong point on his team's game in that Sunday morning matchup.
Yeah, for sure. Just one more thing before we go to another commercial break here. A player that stood out to you from IHA this past weekend.
I'm gonna go back to Tayson Swampy. I really love those smaller bodied guys that play with tenacity, not afraid to go into the corners and really kind of muck it up. And those are kind of my favorite kind of players. Seeing the guys who put in that extra effort, being a smaller guy, it just seems like there's an extra effort needed to play that physical game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We saw a number of guys that looked very strong in that aspect of things in terms of just the way some of these players were built. And let me tell you, Cody, I'm going to tell you, you would have loved to see me play because what you're describing is kind of what my playing style is like. But no, I'm joking, of course. So we got to talk about these kids here. But yeah, we're going to take another commercial break here on this segment of Off the Wall with Cody Wall here on Coffee with Graham. Coming back, we're going to end off the segment this week by talking about the Mound Hockey Academy U18 female prep Buffaloes and the Pembina Valley Hawks exhibition game that we saw to end off the weekend here on Off the Wall with Cody Wall here on Coffee with Graham. Stick with us after this commercial break. Welcome back to Off the Wall with Cody, this week's edition of the segment with Cody Wall here on Coffee with Graham. We've talked about the CSSHL U17 Male Prep Showcase that was played in Mound, Manitoba this past weekend on Blackjack Stewart Arena. Now we're going to move into the last game that we saw on the network this past weekend in Blackjack Stewart Arena in Pilot Mound, Manitoba, between the Pilot Mound Hockey Academy U18 Female Prep Buffaloes and the Pembina Valley Hawks from the MFHL. This was a game that boded very well for Pembina Valley, dominant throughout the whole game. They ended up winning the game 3-0, outshot Pilot Mound heavily in that game. Just overall, Cody, from what we saw in that game, what impressed you so much about Pembina Valley here, first off?
Yeah, I really liked the way Pembina Valley was able to pass it around, find a lot of the open areas, and just make space out there. Obviously, with it being a women's game, there's no physical body checking, but just kind of the angling and all that. Just a different kind of game, but it's definitely they really did a good job of angling their opponents and pressuring them off the puck.
Yeah, and talked about how they heavily outshot the Buffaloes. Just what really impressed you about just the way that Pembina Valley was coming about getting their opportunities to shoot, taking that puck away, and just in general generating their offense in this game this past Sunday.
Yeah, they definitely they were able to set up and with their foot speed, able to get into areas before the Buffalo, able to find open players in and able to uh, yeah find open players in open ice and able to get good quality shots on net.
Talking about that third goal that Pembina Valley scored, scoring that one shorthanded, Abby Bordedwy, just an unbelievable effort, banking it off the boards to herself after she took that puck into her own possession. And after that, putting that puck past the defender after banking it off the boards and walking in and dangling Julie Ducharme and putting in the back end. Just what impressed you about that goal and just the way that Abby Bordedwy looked in this game this past Sunday?
Yeah, she really, especially on that goal, but even throughout the whole game, really was able to, with her foot speed specifically, able to create a lot of space and get behind defenders. And on that penalty kill, able to, like you said, chip it past the defender and just turned on the jets and motored on in and was able to put the puck past Julie there.
Talked about the offensive zone play of Pembina Valley, how they were generating their chances, how they looked in the offensive zone. Talking about their defensive zone now, just they're playing the neutral zone as well, not really allowing the Buffaloes to really get an inch on them to generate much offenses. The Buffaloes, I believe, only had 7 shots in this game. When you're able to hold the team to under 10 shots, it's definitely a good day in the office. In terms of just their team's defensive zone play in Pembina Valley. Hey, Cody.
Yeah, definitely. They were able to keep player. They were able to have active sticks, able to knock the puck off of the Buffaloes' stick a lot of the time before they were able to really set up and get any sort of offense going. And able to then create their own with a good first pass from the starting from the back end.
Yeah, and speaking of the back end, unfortunate circumstance happening in the first period in that game. Quinn McLaren, team captain, fresh off of playing in the U18 tournament, the Western Regional Women's U18 Championships for Team Manitoba. She was in action in this game. Of course, Abby Bordedwy was also on that Team Manitoba team, but Quinn McLaren, a scary sight early on in that game, had to leave the game. You know, just how much of an impact do you think that might have on this team moving forward in the season if Quinn is out for a significant amount of time?
Yeah, I think if she's out for a significant amount of time, she's definitely going to be a fair size hole left in their lineup. But they have had a lot of their other players coming back from injury. I know Maya Pierce recently came back from injury. I believe that they have some other players that have recently come back, but definitely if she's out for an extended period of time, that is somebody they're going to miss on the back end. Like I said, a good player who's able to make good, clean, crisp first pass, able to break out of their end and create a good, solid breakout. Yeah, just if she's out for any extended period of time, will definitely be a fair size hole left in their lineup.
Yeah, for sure. Not only is she the team captain on this year's Pembina Valley team, but also just in terms of her playing style out there, she's the all-around package, can get it done in all facets of the game, a complete 200-foot player. But, thinking about it, Cody, definitely this team has a lot of depth on the defensive side of things when you talk about Erica Fiala, Emily Foster, and Zenith Vanstone, who looked very impressive in this game and looked on the Pembina Valley social media. She ended up getting the team hard hat, or the team award for their player of the game. What impressed you from Zenith Vanstone's game, this past exhibition game on Sunday against the Buffaloes?
Yeah, she really possessed the puck quite well. When the puck was on her stick, she wasn't forcing the play by no means. She wasn't coughing the puck up. And that was another part that plays into Pilot Mound not getting many shots, is there weren't a lot of turnovers by any of the Hawks players, but especially by Zenith Vanstone. She was making good, crisp first passes, good breakout passes, and able to have an active stick when Pilot Mound was coming down in on the defensive zone.
Kaylee Franz getting the start in this game this past Sunday, in that exhibition game against the Buffaloes. Only faced 7 shots, but stopped all of them. Ended up getting the shutout from the little amount of work that she got. What impressed you from Kaylee Franz's game this past weekend?
Yeah, definitely. When you're in a game where you're not seeing a lot of rubber as a goalie, it's sometimes you struggle to stay engaged in the game. That's not something I saw from her. She did seem alert and ready for every shot she did face throughout that game. And even as Pilot Mound broke into their end, was getting in position and getting ready to make a save if the puck did come towards her net. And really staying engaged in the game was something that I thought was done quite well by Kaylee Franz.
Last thing on the Pembina Valley side of things here in this segment, a player that stood out to you from them in that exhibition game against the Buffaloes.
A player that I thought stood out in that game would be probably I'm gonna go with Abby Bordedby. She's always a driver of the offense on that team. Her quick speed, her quick foot speed is definitely something that always stands out, and is able to catch a lot of the defenders off guard and able to drop defenders towards her with trying to play that catch up game, getting the defenders off their game plan.
Going into the Buffaloes now from Pilot Mound Hockey Academy, this U18 female prep team, of course, not the effort they were looking for in that game, heavily outplayed by Pembina Valley. Just things that you really noticed that the Buffaloes were struggling on in that game this past Sunday.
Yeah, they were obviously offensively, they were struggling to sustain any constant pressure on the Hawks. I know we kind of alluded to it when we were talking about IHA, how passing is such an important part of the game. That was something that I thought maybe they needed to work on a bit. Just kind of them being a team that maybe wasn't able to match their opponent's speed. That was definitely something, as we mentioned before, when you're up against a fast team, being able to, pass the puck around and snap it around is something that you need to do to kind of counteract that.
Yeah, and something that the Buffaloes really missed was the play of Morgan Satie. Of course, she got tossed from that game after she was the one that ended up getting that penalty on that Quinn McLaren injury on that play there. With Morgan Satie tossed from this game, how huge of a hole did that leave in the Buffaloes lineup moving forward in that game in terms of them trying to generate offense?
Yeah, when you're a top offensive player is kicked out of the game, that is definitely a large hole left in your lineup. And unfortunately, there wasn't anybody who was able to kind of grab the reins after Satie was tossed from the game. But, early on, Satie, I thought, had, for the short amount of time we were able to see her, had been trying to generate offense for her team, and was looking like she was going to have a pretty good game and have a part in trying to hold off the Hawks yesterday.
In terms of a strength for Pilot Mound in that game, it definitely had to be on goaltender Julie Ducharme. Only letting in 3 goals, of course, not getting the win, of course, but she faced 12 shots, and the Buffaloes had none in that first period. Just for Julie Ducharme, in that game, she had a strong game against St. Mary's the week before, even though she lost in that game as well. But how impressed were you from what we saw from Julie Ducharme this past Sunday in that exhibition game?
Yeah, I definitely liked her compete level. She had kept trying to put herself in front of the puck as best she could on every shot. I didn't think I saw her giving up too many rebounds. It looked like she kind of was able to, when a shot came in, able to control it. Because I feel like without her able to, her solid rebound control, we would have probably seen a lot more Hawks shots on net just from those second and third opportunities. But I think that she did a good job of when a shot came, able to settle down the play and let her team kind of get a breath of fresh air and try and come out and kind of counteract some of that offense that Pembina Valley was putting towards them.
Yeah, and the Buffaloes, this team, just overall, this U18 female prep program hasn't had a lot of positives this season. There's been very few, but if you're the coaching staff, Brad Platt, head coach, and assistant coach Cassidy Carrolls, what you're kind of looking for if you're in that position in terms of what you need to work on moving forward in this next week to have this team prepared, ready to go, to give a better effort in their next games coming up here?
One thing I've seen, it looks like there has been a lot of the lines have kind of stayed the same. I thought kind of between games, maybe trying a couple of different combinations, seeing who is able to kind of find their line mates and kind of develop some chemistry. That's one thing I think that we've seen kind of develop in the U15 and U17 teams is some chemistry. And as that kind of built, I feel like the teams have made leaps and bounds as they've progressed. And I think that's maybe something that the girls Buffalo need to maybe experiment with, and maybe finding some combinations that maybe generate a little bit more offense.
Yeah, for sure. And let's end off with this right here. One player that, even though they struggled as a team, as a unit in that game against Pembina Valley, if you had to pick one player that, in your opinion, was a positive that stood out for the Buffaloes, who would that be in this past exhibition game?
For her effort, her consistent effort on Sunday, I'm going to go ahead and say Julie Ducharme. Her effort was, she didn't put forth a bad effort. She definitely kept giving it her all for the full 60 minutes. And I think she would be the player I would say for the girls U18 Buffalo would be my player that I liked over this weekend.
Yeah, I'd have to definitely agree with that, especially when her team really didn't generate much in front of her in terms of offense, and her only keeping this game to 3-0 in terms of just all the opportunities that the Buffaloes gave up. Cody, this was our longest segment ever here, your longest segment ever here of Off the Wall with Cody here on Coffee with Graham. We'll see you next week on Monday, 7 days from today, to break down the past weekend of games that we'll see on the network coming up this weekend as well as some games in the week as well. Cody Wall here on his segment Off the Wall with Cody here, joining us on this Monday night, this episode being used on this Tuesday morning episode. Cody, you take care, and we'll see you this weekend, eh?
All right. Thanks for having me on, Graham. Have a great day.
And no, thank you for coming on my show and doing your segment, Cody. It's a pleasure to have you. You take care, man. Peace out. Stay safe.
Thanks.